Thank you for tuning into our podcast. We are coming to you from Chicopee, Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining me is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Kuhn. And he offers both public and private tours, as well as presentations of the local canal systems, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks and streets in Holyoke, South Hadley, and Chicopee, Mass. Now, you actually lead these tours and give these presentations yourself, is that correct?
Yes, and this would be a great tour to lead because it's so much variation.
So today he'll be educating us on the Bynan Conservation Area. So what is the trail system like in the Bynan Conservation?
It's a wonderful trail system, and it does have another map online, and it's also blazed with different colors, so you can find your way around. Again, if you're a beginner there, bring a map to get used to the trail system. And it varies greatly, so what you're going by is a pond or a lake, or you're going by a grove of pines or a grove of maples, so everything changes drastically around here. And the trails are not with a system. If you look at it, you say, oh, that's very random. There might have been a system in the past because there are trails to get in and around the various areas. And the best way to think about it is that these trails are put in maybe by ice harvesters. As they harvest each of the ponds out there for other ice in the winter, they probably built up the trail system. The major trail going right through is most likely a road going from Lyman Terrace in a wooded path all the way through to Granby. And it probably was made as a way to get to the places out there, but it was made also as a way to get these ice blocks off of these different ponds out there.
So what is the major reason this Bynan Conservation land exists?
This conservation land was made because there's so many ponds out there, and there's a big landfill, and somehow they realized that you could not build on this too much wetlands, and it's also that big landfill, and so that defines that you couldn't do nothing out there. It also has a brook going through, the Leaping Well Brook, and if you go out there, why does this land exist? It exists because these ponds used to be 9 in number. They set the tone for what was going to be out there. If you go out there now, you probably think there's only 5 ponds now, and you might be right. I know one, Taylor Pond, was the biggest, and when the dump was put in the 1950s, the dump went right over Taylor Pond, so they filled it in. There were 2 ponds also in Chicopee, and that's why the edge near New Ludlow Road is still a bit swampy. But if you go out there, those 2 ponds are gone. They're called the Snow Pond and the Slattery Pond. They're 120 feet long, and they're both gone. Now, there's some others with names. I think one is called Bynan Pond, and the others might have names. Some are just spring ponds that come around only in the spring, and that would be the one closest to Karen Drive. One that's almost always there is the largest one that exists out there. It's a very, very long one, and it's probably about 250 feet long, and it used to be about 10 feet deep. And all these ponds are getting shallower and shallower. So 60 years ago, they would have been quite differently ponds, deeper, with banks along them. Now, you go out there, and a lot of them are barely anything left. There's the one that's furthest to the east is the one that's still very distinctive a pond. It must be quite deep, and it is at the bottom of a hill, so maybe it is deeper where it dips down there. But slowly, ecological succession is taken over, and especially pond succession. They're being filled in with soil as the years go by, also filled in with biological matter that's decaying, and all this is driving the ponds towards not existing at all. So if you had gone out there 60 years ago, they would have been thriving ponds with a lot of life around, fish life, bird life, so forth. Now there's much less of that, and it's not it's not because of anything external to this area. It's all internal that naturally ponds undergo successions.
So quickly, before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill listeners in, if you want to find out more information or sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. There he has both videos of the various stops along each tour, also past and present photos of the historical sites throughout as well. If you're interested in setting up a private tour, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, B@yahoo.com. They are perfect for fun and educational outdoor activities for the whole family, and also good for your group parties, especially those special occasions and get-togethers. They're also good just for getting outdoors for a day. So getting back to our interview, give us some of the formal details about the Bynan Conservation Area.
All right, it has 3 entrance points, and you can take any one of these. The best one that I like by far is the one that's by the high electrical wires, and that's on the end of Lyman Terrace. That's an easy place to get in. It's very close to the largest pond of all, and the trail map is out there. Now there's another entrance point off of the road. You could park on that road and go in. You have to go by a couple of swamps and a lot of sand pits. But if you follow the blazes after a while and you have a map, you should do well. Now the other one and last way to get in is off of East Street, which leads to Bartlett Street, which leads to a dead end, and you get out there and you can walk in from there. You're going to be with your Granby dump to your left-hand side, and you can actually get in very rapidly, get on some really cool trails going up and down. But again, if you don't know the trail system, make sure you follow the map and watch the blazes, because you can get very confused very quickly. Now, this is about 212 acres, so about maybe 2/5 of a square mile. It seems bigger because much of the surrounding land is also owned by Hadley. The dump, for instance, the Granby dump, some of the high wire areas. Those add to the field and make it seem very, very big.
And what can be done to improve this conservation land?
One big improvement, which won't happen because definition of conservation land is you don't make new trails. But one thing that should happen is that a trail should be built to the largest pond of all. If you call them with 5 ponds out there that still remain, then 4 of them you can get to very easy on the trail system, but 1 you cannot, and that's the largest one. And it's also the best one with a lot of life around it. If you go out there in the wintertime, you can walk on top of all these ponds. And this one is great to walk around down the outside. Be careful, since it is about 10 feet deep in the middle. So I walk the perimeter when it's really hard. And it's great because you get a sense of all the life that's out there. And you can see through the various clearings lots of different types of trees. My favorite, the birch trees are beautiful to look at. And I hope you get used to this area and walk it a lot and get to learn what it's about.
So thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours, and we'd like to thank our listeners for tuning in. You can also tune into a large selection of our other podcasts and much more at his website. Again, that's holyokecanaltour.org. And again, you can email him directly for private tours or to inquire about anything else at bobcat4214, B@yahoo.com. And be sure to keep an eye out for his upcoming 2024 season tours and more as they become available. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning into our podcast. We are coming to you from Chicopee, Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining me is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Coleman, and he offers both public and private tours, as well as presentations of the local canal systems, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks and streets in Holyoke, South Hadley, and Chicopee, Mass. Now, you actually lead these tours and give these presentations yourself, is that correct?
Yes, and I'd love to lead one through here because it's a really cool trail system.
So today he'll be educating us on the Black Stevens Conservation Area. So what is the trail system like in the Black Stevens Conservation?
All right, most of these trails back here were made because it was farmland in the past, of course, and they're nice trails to take, it goes to different places all the time. But you have to have a map if you're a beginner. You have to follow it because there's no way to help you out there. And if you don't know where you're going, you get lost very quickly. But they're all fun to take. So that's a great reason to take these trails and get used to them. And this has been a great way to cut through from the plain school to the high school and back and learn about the whole area. And there's lots of learning here. We'll cover that at some point. And we'll see how this big area has lots of cool things within it. But of course, everything needs improvement. I'll mention those along the way. But you can get in at the plain school, park there, and start walking in towards the north. There's a little sign how to get in. And right away, you're met with a lot of choices. You can take it straight through like most people do, but there's a cutoff, and the cutoff goes towards the dingle. It skirts the dingle area. But if you go straight in, then you have a lot more side trails, all going to the left, of course, because to the right is private property. So it's very fun to walk around. The other place you can get in is at the South High School, and there park in the parking lot during non-school hours, and you can walk in very simply from a trail very close to Route 116, and then walk up, and about 300 yards in, you meet with a decision because you get to go over a breached dam and get into many more trails. Most people don't necessarily do that when they do the one that skirts along the little stream that's out there. And they follow that up, and it branches around. And if you get used to this area, you get used to all the wonderful things out there, all the nice bird life. There's a lot of oaks and birch trees I can see along the trails. There's two dingles, one along the plain school side and one along the high school side, and they're separate. And these areas are meant to enjoy all the beautiful flowers too. But if you go at the right time of year, you can see some really cool flowers, such as lady slippers. And last time I saw a lady slipper was in this area. They're fairly easy to find if you go in the right time of year.
So, what is the major reason this Black Stevens Conservation Land exists?
Okay, it exists because used to be the land where the Stevens paper mill had their dams, and then they take the water from the dams to provide a steady source of water. Manufacturing of paper requires fresh, clean water, and they would get it out of here at a very steady rate. Now, one of their dams is breached, the other one's still there a bit, and you get to see it's been like. Also, the name Black is in there because that's the last name of a person who went through this area a lot and really got it going as a conservation area. And also, this area, for the most part, has been since the 1960s part of South Hadley, and it's grown and grown since there, as conservation commissioners have bought up land that was adjacent. It got bigger and bigger. So it exists because it used to be the land for mills. Now the brook that passes through is called the Newton Smith Brook. It's a tiny brook most of the time, but it starts in one dingle by Plain School, and it slowly goes down, and it goes down to Route 116 by the high school by the end. And there it forms a somewhat larger pond because it's dammed up.
So quickly before we continue with the rest of the interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out more information or sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org, and there he has both videos of the various stops along each tour and also past and present photos of the historical sites throughout as well. And if you're interested in setting up a private tour, you can email him directly at bobcat4214 capital B at yahoo.com, and they are perfect for fun, educational, outdoor activities for the whole family, or for your group parties, especially those special occasions and get-togethers. They are also good just for getting outdoors for the day. So getting back to our interview, give us some of the formal details about the Black Stevens Conservation Land.
All right, it's 77 acres, and It is marked in certain places, so you can really follow along the blazes to get to certain places. That might be the best way to go about it when you're a beginner on these trails, just to get used to the trails. Because some are nice and flat, going inland, and they meet. You can do a flat trail or a slightly sloped trail. But some of the trails really go downhill quick because you're going up from the plains area down to the woodland area, which is lower in elevation. Now, other details that you might want to know is that you can park at the Plains School in the high school only during non-school hours. So make sure that it's weekends or after school hours to go in there. And another thing is they do have a trail map on the South Hadley Conservation Commissioner's website, and you can use that to get into these places and enjoy it more.
So, what can be done to improve this conservation land?
Okay, I always thought in this conservation land that they could write up signs like they have at the Bachelor Brook Conservation Area and explain to people what they're looking at. For instance, the two dams, they can explain the pond up reservoir. They can explain. They can explain certain areas where certain kinds of trees are prevalent, such as a certain section where there's a lot of hemlocks grouped together and there's a lot of maples grouped together. You can explain why they're so successful in that area. And you can also explain some of the flower life and bush life along the way. That would be great. So this area might deserve like 8 signs to explain to people exactly what they're looking at.
So thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours, and we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. You can also tune into a large selection of our other podcasts and much more at his website. Again, that's holyokecanaltour.org. And again, you can email him directly for private tours or to inquire about anything else at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And be sure to keep an eye out for his upcoming 2024 season tours and more as they become available. Thank you for tuning in.